discussed inside the classroom, we have the driver's side compartment. The driver's side compartment consists of multiple different pieces of equipment. We had 5 cones, full-size cones. Those full-size cones will look a little something like this. Okay, and once again, they were utilized to mark the tanker, protect your hose, mark your hydrant, and mark where your truck should stop, given a fill location. Something else that was discussed is a fill hose. A fill hose is a 3-inch hose, 25 foot in length, with a storage connection in the center and a female on the exterior. This is used for that quick fill operation, not for your on-scene, on-alarm calls. Okay? A wheel chock looks as so, and it is placed on the wheel whenever your apparatus is in the stop and park position for long periods of time. And then we have the 2.5 thread to the 4-inch Torx adapter as well. The drop cords that were discussed in the classroom, one is the electric, and it is 2-part. You have a pigtail and drop from the ceiling, and then you have your air line that is dropped from the ceiling. Once again, when you plug them in, make sure you are going straight in, not at an angle. You want to ensure that they are plugged in straight in so you bend nothing, damage nothing, and harm nothing. And then you want to check for your door operations. Whenever it's opening and closing, you want to make sure nothing gets pinched, none of your gear and your equipment is in the way, and you want to activate and work your latching mechanism, close it, give it a little yank, make sure it did close, and then to open, test, close. Moving to the rear, we're going to go to our dump chute location. The dump chute, what we're checking, again, what we discussed in class, is to make sure that number 1, it does pull down and out. The other thing we're checking is to make sure that when we put it back, that it does fit back in place where it started. There is a dump chute on the side, and on the rear, and on the other side. Some other things we discussed. I discussed earlier in class that we do not want to have your gauge be your number 1 point of reference for whether or not your tank is full. Okay? When we mount the apparatus, we want to make sure that we have our wits about us. We're not going to trip on anything. Okay? We're mounting the apparatus. We're climbing up. Make sure that we're secured to the apparatus and we're not going to fall. Okay? Our flap that I was talking about opening up, or the overfill protection for your tank, this is what you're going to lift up and keep lifted up to check and see and make sure that you are full of water. Okay? And it is full of water. Full of water to us is going to mean that our water is all the way to the very top lid, the portion of this tank, because every gallon makes a difference. Okay? Other things that we can check. The one thing that we cannot check, because we will release water, the 2 valves that we cannot check are the quick fill valves, or the direct fill valves. We do not play with those. Okay? The time we want to check those is maybe when we do have the end of the month and we want to put this thing to work. We can open those up and we can make sure that the fill valves do work. Okay? Once again, the dump on the rear, make sure it drops down and sits, nothing falls off, and back in place. The unleaded fuel is checked right up here. We have basically a plastic jerry can. Okay, this is a fuel tank that holds the unleaded 91 octane fuel that we were talking about earlier. We want to make sure that it is never overpressurized. Okay, that sometimes we have to open it up and vent it out. When you open it up, it vents all the fuel vapors out, and you want to make sure that it is only at the full level. Whenever it's all the way to the top, it can overpressurize, and that's not good on the tank. Other things we're looking for is making sure, once again, on our hard section, that the gasket is on that side, that the female section is on that side, towards the front of the truck, that the hydrant connection is back here with us and ready to be pulled. The hydrant connection is always loaded with the hose in first, and the hydrant connection itself, the gated Y, last. Okay? It does not matter whether or not the gated Y is to the on and off position, but make sure you know whenever you're using it on the hydrant if it is on the on and off position. Okay? But one thing you do want to work on a weekly or even a daily is to make sure that those levers do work. Whenever you get up to the top, you're also checking for a broom rake that's on the top of the truck. You have a section of hose here, the 1.75" section. It's a rubber line, red in color, with a combination nozzle on it. How long is this section of hose? 100 feet in length. How long is the nursing line? What is the diameter? 3-inch line. Okay, the diameter of the 3-inch line, nursing line, that does not have any nozzle to the end of it. It is used for filling operations or slow-moving operations on a fire scene. Something that does not require lots of gallons of water at a quick rate. Something else that you can test on your combination nozzle. Make sure your bell works just fine, okay? Making sure that you go from straight stream to fog stream just fine. Rotate the end of your nozzle, making sure everything works fine there. Whenever you get back to your pump, a few things that you want to check. You want to make sure that you're working all of your valves on your pump. You come to this side of the pump, you're working these valves, and making sure that everything else is where it needs to be. You have 2 spanner wrenches, a hydrant wrench, and your Joplin adapter that we discussed earlier. Other things that we're checking for is to make sure there's no obvious leaks. We don't want leaks on the truck. If you're losing water here in the station, you're losing water on the scene. Make sense? Okay. On the pump, we're making sure that the pump is fixed to the truck, that we can give it a little jiggle and there's no wiggle to it. Give it a little jiggle, we don't want that wiggle. Okay? We want to make sure that the pump is always on the recirculating, or it's always set to recirculate. That is a personal preference. You can set it to recirculate as you turn it on if you want to. It does not hurt the apparatus to have it in the recirculating position all the time. What were the on positions for valves? Inline is on. Perpendicular is off. Good. Okay. Something else that we check on the pump here, we have a dipstick. The oil dipstick is located on the rear of the pump. What was the brand that we use on the safety seat? Schaefer's 30 weight. Correct. Very good. Other things we're looking for. Make sure that the choke operates. Okay. It's in and out. Push, pull. We're making sure that the throttle goes up and down. We're making sure that the toggle switch for the power goes on and off. Put it to the off position. Whenever you pull it out, you're obviously going to check for the running and making sure that it runs properly. Whenever you do run it, you start it on an idle, and you make sure you start it with the choke on, make sure the fuel works, and make sure that the truck is running, so you're not rocking the truck with any kind of power. The master switch is required to be on, and the truck should be running if you're running your pump. It's better on the truck. Other things you're checking after you're done running it, you want to make sure that you have no hot shut off done to it. You want to idle it down and let it be in an idle for a little bit so you don't shut it off running at full throttle. And then when you're done, what do you check? If you've ran something, you've used fuel. Okay? So you want to make sure that you are checking that. Another thing we have, something that doesn't come off very easily, you have to work at it, and it'd be really obvious if it went missing. A 3,000-gallon porta tank on top. Okay? It is a collapsible porta tank. It's exactly what it is used for. You pull it off, and on end of the month weekly, it is a good idea to check for new holes, new dry rot on the tarp material, anything like that. You pull it off the truck, you undo it, you set it up, and you make sure that it is properly functioning. The drain holes, there's 2 drain holes on either side. You'll have them on opposite sides of the tank. You want to make sure that they are functioning properly and tied up correctly. I can't tell you how many times that we come on scene and we put water to it, and I've actually seen it. We put water in the tank, and it actually starts spilling out right away because it wasn't tied properly. Okay? You don't want to slow your operations down, so check them often. All right? Something else when you're checking, if you're outside and the truck is running, you want to make sure that all your lights are operating back here. There's plenty of them, so make sure that the lights are operating and functioning correctly. Okay? And while you've checked all this stuff, you want to ensure that it is all secured and stay secure on your apparatus after you're done checking it and during the check. Okay? Moving on to the passenger side. Something else that we want to check is, once again, we have another dump chute. A dump chute on the passenger side checks just the rear and the driver's side dig. Okay? So what we want to do is make sure we pull down on it and put it back in place. Once again, there are more lights around the truck. Okay? We're checking it, every light works. It does not matter what kind of light it is, you're going to make sure that you have working, functioning lights. Every single one gets checked. We have scene lights on the top of the truck, tiny little scene lights. You want to make sure that you hit the toggle switch on those, and you want to make sure that they are functioning correctly as well. Okay? Moving on, we have the tires. Once again, we're bending over, we're checking, we're making sure that there's inflation in both tires. Making sure that there's not excess amount of brake dust or anything like that that might just stand out at you and be cause for attention or concern. Checking a door. Once again, it opened and functioned just right. The things that were inside here, the low profile strainer. What do we want to check? The 2 main things we want to check on that?
Gasket.
gasket is there and present. It is a black gasket, it is present. Next thing we want to check is
Jet siphon.
the jet siphon cap is present as well, because we do not want to lose water in the actual scene, in the moment of the scene. We don't want to lose any water capability or gallonage. And then once again we have the extensions. The extensions have the source connection to them. We want to make sure that the gasket is present on the source connection. If these extensions have been sitting for a long period of time, we want to make sure to unroll them. If they have a stench to them, we want to make sure that they're good and dry. So unroll them and then roll them in the opposite direction just to get them working. It's just another way of working hose. And then we have a stand, which is basically a stand just for the low profile strainer, or for the hard suction. My apologies. And then we close the compartment. You can see that there's a little bit of space here. Open it back up, close it. Now there's a little less space. Make sure that it is closed in its entirety. Something else we were checking again, once again, the gas tank. The gas tank is located on the passenger side of our tankers. We are diesel on these gas tanks. We want to make sure that, number one, there's no fuel spillage anywhere around there. And if the paint is starting to get eaten off, we need to troubleshoot and find out why this is happening. If it's simply because we are dribbling the fuel when we're taking the nozzle out, then we need to fix that and maybe wipe it off when we get back to the station so the paint does not come off. And then we're checking the mirrors, making sure that everything is intact, that there's no, nothing's disconnected on the heated mirrors. And then we're checking the other tire, making sure that the hood is latched and locked up. Any questions?
No.